right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. It seems like the topic of the day, as driven by the media, is will they prosecute these CIA agents who practice the enhanced interrogation? Will they prosecute those who signed off? What about Bush and Cheney? Will they prosecute them? This is outrageous talk, and it's dangerous talk, and we're going to concentrate on that and more. But Michele Bachmann, she said goodbye to the House, on the floor of the House yesterday. Watch.
Privilege for me now, Mr. Speaker, also to be in this well, to deliver what is my last speech on this floor. It has been the privilege and the honor of a lifetime for me to serve as a member of the United States Congress.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the one and only Congresswoman Michele Bachmann speaking on the floor of the House yesterday. Of course, this is the end. She decided not to seek re-election, and we are joined right now, I'm happy to say, by the Congresswoman. Hello, Congresswoman.
Hello, Steve. It's great to be on with you today. And those words were delivered last night on the House floor. It was my last speech that I'll ever give on the House floor. It was a privilege to be able to be there. I took every opportunity that I had to speak in that body. It's a rare privilege to be able to speak there, and it was really an honor to be able to speak there last night as well. My family was in the gallery when I gave the last speech, as well as my staff, and so it was a lot of fun to be able to do that.
You said ever. I mean, does that preclude ever returning?
No, not at all. I have been here and I have worked solid for 8 years, and I'm looking forward to just a little bit of change of pace. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting a little rest. I threw the dice and I threw myself completely into this job. I've worked virtually nonstop from the time my feet hit the floor in the morning until I go to bed at night. There hasn't been a lot of discretionary time, so I look forward to regrouping and getting a little rest, and who knows what the future might bring. But one thing I want to do is weigh in heavily on the 2016 races. I occupy a very unique space. I'm the only Republican woman in history who has been on the presidential stage and participated in presidential debates. I was in 15 of them, and presumably there will be a woman on the Democrat ticket in 2016. So I want to weigh in with a female perspective on 2016, because this will be an enormously consequential election to determine who our next president will be and what our future direction will be as a country, because as you know, the president has tremendous power, particularly when it comes to our national security and foreign policy. And having served in the Intelligence Committee dealing with the nation's classified secrets and terrorism, I'm highly invested in that arena. So I want to be involved in the 2016 race.
All right, so just a couple things. So you may one day run for Congress again, right? Or maybe the Senate or something down the road? You're not ruling that out?
No, I'm not ruling that out at all.
And what about
as of today, I have no plan.
Right, but what about president? You know, it makes it sound like you're not interested in seeking the nomination in 2016, are you?
No, at this point, I'm not putting together a committee, but I will be involved in one way or another in 2016, whether it is assisting another candidate to be our next nominee or in whatever capacity, but I will be involved in
All right,
that.
well, I got to ask you, because you left it wide open, and I'd be remiss if I didn't. Is it still possible that you might decide to run for the Republican nomination for 2016?
I think it's highly unlikely. It takes a long time to put your team together. Could it happen? Sure, it could happen, but at this point, I don't foresee that.
Okay. When you say involved, so say you don't run, how do you view yourself? In what capacity weighing in and making a difference, especially, I guess, to counter, say Hillary's on the ticket? I mean, to speak out against her, to point out to women, to go around and speak to women and say she's not the woman for the job? I mean, in what capacity would you do that, do you see yourself in the future?
I'll be speaking across the country nationally. I'll be writing. I'll be weighing in. Probably I'll be in the media as well, speaking on radio and on TV and print media. Because I was privileged to be on the front lines during Benghazi, during Mrs. Clinton's years being the architect of the president's foreign policy fiascos, and also to remind people that Mrs. Clinton is the godmother of Obamacare. She was the original author of Hillary Care, which was even more government mandated heavy than even Obamacare. So I'll be talking about her background and her policy prescriptions and how she would fulfill a third and fourth term of Barack Obama if people choose to make her the next president of the United States.
Do you have a favorite from the Republican side right now that you would support if you don't run?
I have a lot of favorites. We're going to have a terrific candidate. We have a lot of well-qualified individuals. By my count, a minimum of 16 are looking to seek the nomination, which I think is very healthy. It forces all of the other candidates to be on their best footing. So we will have a great candidate, and I look forward to assisting that person to become our next president.
All right, stay where you are. We're going to come back. I want to get to some specifics about the what we've seen happening over the past couple of days with the release of that report, and talk to more issues with Michele Bachmann. Don't go away. So when Dianne Feinstein today says you lied, is she lying?
I'll go so far as to say she's incorrect. I mean, lying is intentionally misleading someone. All right. Let me make another distinction. Telling people something they don't want to hear is not the same thing as telling people something that is untrue.
All right. That was, of course, General Michael Hayden speaking with us exclusively yesterday as Dianne Feinstein was trashing him on the floor of the Senate. We're rejoined by Congresswoman Michele Bachmann. Congresswoman, what's your take on this whole thing? Why do you think Dianne Feinstein chose to put Americans at risk here and abroad and release this report?
I'm absolutely bewildered. I had lunch yesterday with a Democrat who serves with me on the Intelligence Committee, Dianne Feinstein being the chairman of Intelligence in the Senate. We, of course, are in the House of Representatives. The Democrat that I had lunch with was offended and bewildered and perplexed. He couldn't understand why in the world Dianne Feinstein did that. It made no sense. We deal with this issue every single day, and it's inexplicable why she would do this.
And isn't it, to the best of your knowledge, true that Dianne Feinstein was among those who were briefed all along on these tactics as they were being used and done and never said boo?
Yeah, of course, as was Speaker Nancy Pelosi. They all knew what was being done. And remember, we are living in a world where jihadists are regularly beheading innocent Americans despite negotiations and all the rest. They are taking the most innocent among us, journalists who are simply trying to cover news, or people who are aid workers who are trying to bring aid and assistance to Muslims who are being persecuted in the Middle East. These innocent people are the ones who are being beheaded in front of cameras. And so to say that the CIA, which is covertly trying to do everything that they can to keep the American people safe, is beyond the pale and inexplicable.
All right, let me ask you, we have now the revelation of a budget bill that will avert the shutdown. It seems like to me, and I'm looking at it from afar, that Republican leadership, John Boehner, has caved on every single issue, and a lot of conservatives are upset. How do you feel about it?
Well, I think that a lot of people have the right to be upset because they put the gavel not only in John Boehner's hands, but now in Mitch McConnell's hands, and they expect that Republicans will use that gavel. The results of the first Tuesday in November was not to give amnesty to millions of illegal aliens, nor was it to give out 5 million plus work permits to compete with American workers. That isn't what the election was about. People want us to stand up for American values and the American worker, and I agree with that assessment. In this bill, there is no defunding of the president's unconstitutional illegal work permits. And the president also wants to give $1 billion of money toward public assistance of unaccompanied minors. This again is not what the voters asked.
So what? How do you explain what Boehner? How do you explain what Boehner and McConnell have done? Did they sell out, break their promise?
They don't want to fight. They don't want to fight. And what they're claiming is that there will be a government shutdown. I don't believe that. I don't agree with that. I believe that we could 100% fund government, 99.999%, except for the little tiny bit that would pay for the illegal work permits. That's the only portion that we wouldn't fund. Everything else would get funded, and they don't want the fight.
Let me ask you a question. You've been treated so unfairly by the media, you, Sarah Palin, any female conservative, it seems, you as well. Let me put up a Newsweek cover that made you look, the queen of rage. Just outrageous stuff. We have friends at Mediaite today. Farewell, Michelle. Watch 8 of the craziest things Bachmann has ever said. I mean, how do you feel about the way the media's treated you?
Well, you know, one thing that I thought was very interesting, you mentioned the Newsweek cover that was put up about me. At the same time, Newsmax also did a cover on me. It was a beautiful cover. It was a straight-on photo, and they just told the straight story. So Newsweek was fair and balanced.
You mean Newsmax was fair and balanced?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Newsmax was straight and balanced and straightforward and told the story. And you saw the side-by-side of the over-the-top bias that came out of Newsweek versus the fair coverage. Again, it wasn't meant just to be laudatory. It was fair coverage.
So is it okay? Is it okay? We only have 45 seconds for the media to trash Republican women the way they do conservative blacks. Does that seem to be the rule?
That is their rule because it's advocacy journalism. It certainly isn't unbiased. And that's why we need alternative sources like Newsmax. Thank God for you guys.
What advice do you have for conservative women in politics?
Well, just tell the truth and don't whine. I never whined about the negative media coverage because ultimately I take a long view. The truth does prevail. And the other thing is that Reagan understood. He had terrible news coverage, but he spoke through the media and over their heads straight into the hearts of the American people.
Congresswoman,
and I agree with Reagan.
Come back. God bless you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you,
God bless.
Congresswoman
Bye-bye.
Michele Bachmann. We're coming back. Don't go away, folks.